Greetings on behalf of the Diocese of Olympia. I am here in my role where I get the privilege to travel around Western Washington, all across the diocese, to visit churches 2 to 3 times a month as part of my job of connecting, of getting to experience what the many different places are like in this diocese, and to wander around lost a lot of the time because every church is different and I never know where I am. So thank you for Sabeth to guiding me and keeping me in line as much as possible. Sabeth and I have known Sabeth for a long time, and I'm really deep and great respect for you, Sabeth, and I'm glad to be here in your place. So thank you for being so hospitable. I got the tour of the endless hallways and weird office spaces and all kinds of things in this beautiful, beautiful sanctuary here. So thank you for this. I often think of, as I do these visits, of getting different glimpses of kind of a facets of the gem that is the body of Christ here in this the Diocese of Western Washington. And each place is, the difference is vast. I was at a little while ago the Cambodian congregation outside of Tacoma, and I was at St. Thomas Medina a few weeks ago, and each of these places is so beautiful in its own way and so adapted to its context and what is happening around it. Especially in this place has been shaped by the city of Seattle. It's right here, accompanied by the choir of sirens and cars driving by and all of the things that go along with being in the midst of this neighborhood. But that is part of our calling as the body of Christ, as being present into the context we are invited to do ministry in. As I was listening to these texts and thinking through them this week, I was reflecting on the fact that it is Pride Month and thinking back to a class I took when I went to Pacific Lutheran University over in Tacoma. And my first semester there, this was around 98, 99, I took a class on the HIV/AIDS epidemic. It was a writing seminar. And as part of that class, I remember reading this incredible little book called Gifts of the Body by Rebecca Brown. It's a very small book, essentially stories of a caregiver about caring for AIDS patients in their homes. And throughout the book, it's full of just kind of the grief and weight of doing that ministry, of healing, but a lot of the times it was just this healing of presence throughout the book. She talks about just cooking and cleaning the bodies, bathing, sitting, and listening to stories. There were moments of deep grief and moments of immense hope and healing. And her presence with that as both a calling of her sense of what it means to heal others beyond just what the physical ailment is. That a lot of these people were considered untouchables by society still, that there was a sense of not wanting to get sick, so they didn't want to be near them. And this person found in that space that one of the things they longed for the most was just human interaction, human touch, and normalcy of what it meant to be, that dignity of every human being, which we read as part of our baptismal covenant. Our gospel today echoes this same sentiment. We have Jesus encountering different people throughout this gospel in different ways, each transgressing some boundary of purity or expectation throughout that gospel, as we understand a sense of healing that is beyond just raising the daughter from the dead or healing the hemorrhaging woman, but more of a reconnection to relationship in that society. We start with Matthew and this calling, which Matthew is actively working as a tax collector. He's in the tax booth, and Jesus comes, calls him straight out of the tax booth. You got to wonder if there's a little more happening behind the scenes, because he just follows Jesus in this moment abandons that work. But Matthew, in that tax collecting position, was seen as essentially a traitor to the Jewish people, someone who worked for the Roman Empire, who was collecting their money. There was a lot of corruption in the tax collection process, and Matthew is in the midst of this as someone working for the bad guy, essentially. And Jesus invites him to follow Christ. And then goes into the house, and Matthew throws a party. He's embracing this new call, it seems like, but invites his tax collector friends, and other sinners are around the table, these people that generally Jesus should not be around. And so the Pharisees come in, and they're upset by this because he's transgressing a boundary. He seems to be a traitor. But Jesus dines with these people and celebrates in community and restores not only Matthew, but these to a sense of community instead of exclusion. He is emphasizing the inclusion. Then we have the leader of the synagogue who kneels before Jesus out of desperation, even though they are at odds with the ministry of Jesus. This leader is so desperate because his daughter is dying, has died, and he is asking Jesus to bring his daughter back to life. So he kneels at the feet of Jesus, asking him to break another taboo by touching and healing this dead daughter. Then the hemorrhaging woman, on his way to raising his daughter, on his way, is interrupted by the woman who is bleeding, who is touching the hem of his garment and is healed. In that society, from Leviticus, the codes from Leviticus, you are ritually unclean if you are bleeding. And so this woman who would have been outside of society, outside of the connection to the religious community, not only is healed physically, but is healed back into society, is healed into the community itself by Jesus. And then finally, Jesus shows up to raise the daughter back to life, and touching a dead body means you are ritually unclean as well. But he touches the body, and while he's there, the crowd laughs at him, and I love this scene because there are these flute players just thrown into the mix here, a part of the rioting somehow of all these flautists. And they're causing a ruckus, making fun of him, because he says she's just sleeping and she is risen. All of these sequences are stories that highlight Jesus breaking that boundary, the transgression, always finding the site of ministry outside of expectation with those who are on the margins, those who have been excluded by society, to be with them and to find a presence and healing that is not only of the body, but is of the soul and is of a communal life. When I think of that hem of the garment, reaching out to touch that fringe, I reminded of the Sanctus that we sing on Sunday when we approach communion. And that language which comes from Isaiah 6, this scene of angels singing to God, glory and praise, holy, 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 God of power and might. That in that scene, it describes the hem of God's garment in the temple itself, that what they are witnessing is just a hint of the mystery of who God is. This woman reaching out to be healed is a symbol of what it is when we come to church, in a sense, reaching our own hands up for that same mercy that God gives. The gospel writer of Matthew is focused on a ministry of mercy in the life of Jesus Christ. Throughout the gospel, you'll hear language of mercy brought up over and over again. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, is the phrase that Jesus repeats from Hosea in response to the Pharisees. And what we come to And this place is not only a mercy for ourselves as we grab hold of the hem of God in this place and approach the altar, but to become fed and become the bread broken for others so that we too can give the gift of mercy to a world that is desperate to hear words of love and forgiveness. We come in this story often in all the different characters in this passage. Sometimes we come as Matthew. We are caught up in systems of oppression. We are caught up in things that make us not so innocent. We contribute to the harm of others, and yet we are still called to this place for healing. Sometimes we come into this place and we are like those at Jesus' table, surprised by who Jesus is willing to offer grace to and mercy. Sometimes we are in this place as the Pharisees. We have ways of doing things and they should not be broken, and we are holding tight to what we think is proper maintenance and boundaries of what it is to be the Church of Christ. Sometimes we come in this place and we are that synagogue leader who, on the outside, we may be respectable and put together, but inside we are crushed because we have lost something so dear to us that we are willing to do anything to receive a little help and love. Some days we come here and we are the bleeding woman. We feel like we are the isolated one, the ashamed, the outcast, that we are depleted and we have nothing to live for, and that we have that daring bit of faith that brings us here to grab hold of the hem of God. Other days, we are like the child, dead to the world, utterly unable to save ourselves and dependent on Christ's mercy. I like to imagine that on all days that we can be like Christ and like this caregiver from this book, Gifts of the Body, that Rebecca speaks about, that our ministry of presence in the world is one of a physical attention to the needs of others, of knowing that just words of love are not enough, but being one who breaks down isolation and exclusion and instead brings people into the body of Christ through meal, through touch, through accompaniment, through mourning with others, that this calling is the place that we all aim to be shaped by when we come to the table in our own need week after week. Each of the churches I visit offer unique gifts and charisms to the community and to a world that is desperate and hungry for words of life. We have been given a space with outstretched arms to receive Christ in our midst so that we can give that same love and grace and mercy to those who so deeply long for the exact same thing.